There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to Jesus by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God, for no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him. Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus saith unto him, How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus answered, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I say it unto thee, ye must be born again. That is John chapter 3, verses 1 to 7. That is, for you who are familiar with Neville Goddard's teaching, that is the promise. That is the birth from above that is spoken of. And Nicodemus is a ruler of the Jews. He's familiar with the Old Testament. He's very familiar with the Old Testament. Actually, that's all that they had at the time, right? Was the Old Testament. And this is pretty much the story of Abraham, when he is visited by the Lord, and he is told that when he comes again, that Sarah will have a child. This is the first awakening happening, the visitation, union with God, communion. And in the New Testament, in John's chapter 3, it is called water. This is the baptism that takes place, and it is a very mystical experience. And some of you have had this experience where you have found yourself in the presence of God. And it's felt like love. And to just go back to the only person that I know that has spoken openly about it other than myself, Neville Goddard, he said that he responded by saying love is the ultimate thing. Love is the only thing in the world. Others, like myself, will feel this love and this presence and will be with someone that looks like the Ancient of Days and be comforted, as I was in the dream that I had back in 1994, where he put his arm around me and I didn't need to respond or say anything. I just knew love. It was pure, natural love. And then the second coming, when I come again, Sarah will have a child. And the second coming is the birth from above and your spiritual birth and God being born in you, as you, and no different than you. And Nicodemus being a man, a ruler of the Jews, and if that was his history, he would be well aware of Abraham. But he didn't have the insight, didn't have the imagination, didn't have the inspiration to be in the Spirit, to see what was in the Old Testament and to see the parallel of it in the New Testament, in the New Testament authors writing and telling of their experiences in awakening and coming to this understanding. I want to share my take on this and my birth from above and how it happened for me. It was a revelation. It was a dream. It was a vision. I was very lucid and well aware that I was in a dream and participating in everything that was going on in the dream. Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Talk. This is Nick. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for stopping by. Please leave some comments. If you have any questions or anything, leave some comments down below. Now, I want to share with you my experience because I feel like I need to speak about it and talk about it and leave it here for you guys, for everyone else that will come, because I'll be long gone and these videos will probably still be around if YouTube is still around. And people will have these experiences and not know where to turn. Like I didn't know where to turn when my first awakening happened for me back in 1994. I hadn't heard of the name Neville Goddard. I didn't even know Neville Goddard existed. I had no idea what was going on and what was taking place with me. I would soon find it in the Bible because I did end up eventually going into the Bible to see what was in the Bible. And it was an innate knowing of I had to go and I knew that I would find it there. I can't explain what drove me to go open up the Bible, especially growing up in a Greek Orthodox family and having Orthodox traditions shoved down my throat day and night. You know, I decided to investigate myself. And when I did, I saw it in Daniel, the Ancient of Days, seeing one, the Ancient of Days, as I did on a mountain. Now, I want to share my experiences of how this happened for me back in 2018. And I'm not sure if your experiences will be the same thing, but the frequency and the understanding of what I'm saying should be able to help you in recognizing a similar pattern unfolding within yourself. And maybe it may be even exactly the same as me. Neville's was that he had three witnesses there. As I talk about my experience, I'll show you where the three witnesses appeared for me. In Neville's case, he found a baby on the floor. In my case, it was very similar, but it took place outdoors. Now, I'll tell you what happened. I found myself standing on the porch of this old ancient home, maybe 2, 4, 6,000 years ago, when they made homes by mud and clay and hay and whatnot, right? And some people, architects nowadays, and some carpenters and builders nowadays say that that was probably a stronger foundation than what we got going on for ourselves today. Who knows? But these homes in this dream were ancient. They were old. They were made in an old style. And there was geometric patterns of music on each home. Standing on this porch, looking out at the homes all around me, they all had like dotted quarter notes. They had quarter notes. They had all sorts of musical notes, treble clefs, bass clefs, all sorts of musical notes, indicating a sense of musicality, something like that. And there was also images of guitars and violins and stringed instruments, all, drawn on the walls on the outside of these homes and whatnot. I ended up jumping over the porch that I was standing on and landing on the ground in front of the house. And then I ended up turning right in my dream. As I said, I was very lucid and very aware even of the directions and movements that I was making and the images that I was seeing and the colors and the nature. And it was a beautiful sunny summer day, otherworldly, to be honest with you. Can't compare to the beautiful sunny days here. And I ended up turning right, and then I ended up running. And I started running and running until I came as far away from this little village or town that I was in. And I didn't bother looking back, but I noticed as I was running, the gravel part of the village or the town turned into sand and became a desert. And I found myself running on this desert and heading towards a sand dune. And I was heading up this sand dune like I was going up a mountain. In the distance, I could see as I was running that there was someone, a man, all in white, coming towards me, from head to toe covered in white. And when we got to a point where we were face to face with one another, I could see that he looked like he was clothed in this white linen cloth from head to toe. And I assumed, because I was parched, I was dehydrated, I was sweating. The atmosphere was pure desert, dry, humid, hot, sun beaming down on you. And he started unraveling this white linen cloth, starting from his head and unraveling his cloth. And when he finally had it completely uncovered, he looked at me and I was staring at myself. But I was staring at myself and not recognizing me. It was me, but it was a degree of beauty that is beyond understanding. Anything that we may think here of a human being, whether it be male or female, that we consider to be drop dead gorgeous, is dull and lifeless compared to what I was seeing of myself. I was a royalty, a confidence, a courage, a vividness and vibrancy of life that just oozed of light and a degree of beauty that's just unmatched and supersedes any type of beauty that can be imagined here in this world. And he bends down in front of me, and I look down at my feet, and there's a baby at my feet. And it's wrapped in white linen clothing, as they say, in swaddling clothes. And he picks it up, and he brings it up to me, and I look at it, and it's smiling and laughing and laughing. I pinched its cheek. It laughed. It giggled at me. Then I, who was dressed all in white, looked at myself, who was running and sweaty in the desert, smiled at me, and I continued running up this massive sand dune until I ended up waking up on my bed. As I said, Neville's case, there was 3 witnesses, his 3 brothers. In my case, there was myself, my spiritual self. There was myself, the dream identification of myself as I am in this world. And there was the observer, the one who observed everything, and that was myself also. So there were 3 witnesses in this dream for myself also, but it didn't play out as it did in Neville's. In Neville, it was 3 witnesses. They were of his family. In me, it was myself. Me, myself, and I. That saying, if you're familiar with it. And the observer is going to take up way too much time to explain here. I'll do another video on that, but it's a very real thing. This was one of the dreams also that sparked an interest in me to understand what is actually happening in lucid dreaming, in dreaming, and whatnot. And not from a perspective of psychology or some sort of dream book interpretation, but to understand myself, to understand the multiverse that is myself, and to understand the one who controls it all, which is the observer, which is me. Later on down the road, I would discover that, you know what? We don't ever really sleep. We lay to bed every night and we close our eyes and we think we go to sleep, but we're always on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it will take another video to go into. But that was my experience of the birth from above. And then shortly afterwards, I heard Neville talk about his experience. Now, during my second spiritual awakening, a lot of troubles, a lot of things that I was facing, and a lot of difficulties and challenges came into my life, and I was seeking answers. And the seeking continued even after having these revelations and these mystical experiences until I found Neville. Then Neville became my only guide until I was strong enough to eliminate the belief system of Neville and to be a witness and testify that the experiences that he is talking about are very real. However, they cannot be proven, but they are believed by you. They are happening to you. So you know what is happening to you. Therefore, these experiences are very real and very truthful, and they are you. In that seeking phase between December of 2017 and I would say June or July, around that time is when I met Neville, and I started becoming a student of Neville. I would say that Dr. Wayne Dyer and Reverend Ike were 2 of the most influential people in my life. And both those people had Neville Goddard in common. Both swore by Neville's testimony and experiences, and they both claimed to love a certain book that Neville wrote. One claimed one book. Dr. Wayne Dyer claimed a book, but I forget what the book is called. It may be Resurrection, Neville Goddard's Resurrection book. But Reverend Ike definitely said that he slept with that book, Resurrection, on his nightstand next to him. It was his lamp, his light, and his guide. Now, a lot of you people, if you're familiar with Reverend Ike, might say, well, he was a phony because he had all those Rolls Royces and he had mansions. But never did a man do so much for the Black community as Reverend Ike. And there was a lot of people, and you can find testimonies of these people on YouTube, who Reverend Ike changed and shaped their life for the better. And I loved his passion and enthusiasm. At the time, I had hit the gym. I was building up myself mentally, physically, spiritually. And I found Reverend Ike's inspiration and that passion to just move me through the stages of becoming a better person. Reverend Dr. Wayne Dyer, on the other hand, spoke to my mind. I know he has a psychological background, and maybe I associated that to his teaching and whatnot, but I felt he helped me develop my mind. But these 2 people always kept a reference and referring to Neville Goddard, often. And I suppose that maybe that was my indication to listen to Neville, but I didn't. Like Neville was late to meeting Abdullah, his teacher, I was late to meeting my teacher, Neville Goddard. Even though the name Neville Goddard through Dr. Wayne Dyer and Reverend Ike was constantly around, it took me a while. I had this experience. I had this John chapter 3 experience unfold in me. And then I ended up finding Neville Goddard, who spoke of something similar and spoke of an experience that resonated with me. And I understood that it was spirit meeting spirit. It was spirit identifying with spirit. It was me identifying with Neville, and there is no need for identification because we're one and the same. And that's how you will find your guides and your spirit guides. And they may be in the world or they may be not in the world. And they will guide you and help you. But you will recognize them. Your spirit will recognize its self in another, in your guide. And you two will be one. So I heard Neville talk about this. So when this happened to me, I wanted to share it with people. At the time, I was dealing with a lot of problems and situations in my life, and I was trying to separate everything. And at the same time, I put this in my heart, and I carried it around with me like this dream, just even to this day. This dream and union with God, they are very vivid and very much alive in me as to what happened to me back in 1994 and then what happened to me in 2018, the second coming. Very much alive. And I wanted to share it with people, but I was facing so many things. I was also dealing with a very sick dog. Her name was Tesla, and she had developed cardiomyopathy. And where it usually strikes dogs on one part of their heart, she had won the lottery, and it had struck both sides of her heart. She spent a week in emergency, and the doctors told me, you'll be lucky if you get a couple of more days out of her, and then you're going to have to do something, euthanasia and whatnot. But I said to myself, you know what? I can reach her. If I'm spirit and Spirit of God is in every single thing, I'll be able to reach her and I'll be able to help her. Maybe I can help her get to her 5th birthday. She was 2 years old at the time. And I was kind of hoping that, with my spiritual understanding and as I'm growing and evolving and fixing myself up mentally, physically, and spiritually, I could help her. Well, she didn't make it to her 5th birthday, but I consider that she did because she was a month and a half away before her 5th birthday when she ended up passing away. But that's not the point. I was dealing with a lot of things at the time, and I decided I wanted to share some of this stuff. Maybe it'll help me if I share. And at the time, I had Facebook, and I decided to write a post about Tesla, her illness, and what she was going through, the struggle, medication 6 times a day, 3 early in the morning, 3 late in the evening. And I wanted to share, along with my struggles and my pain, also the glorious unfolding of what was taking place within me. And I wanted to leave it as a testimony, unaware that Facebook is a very invasive and troublesome and very, very manipulative social media site. It tells you that you can block certain people or you can go in private and not have certain people or family members and whatnot find you. But that's not the case. This post that I posted along with a video of myself speaking about this change and referring to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, unto us a child is given, unto us a son is born, or unto us a son is born, unto us a child is given. That is the birth from above. That is the reference to it in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. And I hope I didn't get them backwards, but I'll post it here for you guys. And it turns out that somehow, somebody, I guess, for my family that I left behind me, because during my first spiritual awakening, I realized who my friends are, who my friends weren't, and I lost all of them. Because when you're talking about spiritual things that the world can't comprehend and can't understand, they're going to label you some sort of nut. You have some sort of psychological problem. You're schizophrenic. You're this, that, and the other. They're going to pull out their DMVs and they're just going to shove them down your throat. And you realize then that it could be even your family, and very much so. You will have to distance yourself from your family. You will have to remove the friends in your circle because you are no longer part of that amnesia, part of that separation. You have awakened to understanding there's something greater going on. And it's not for you to shove it down people's throats. If they don't get it, don't worry about it. Distance yourself from them and move on. And that's what I did. But I found when I wrote this post and I was talking about my experience and I was sharing Bible verses like Isaiah, because I hadn't seen John chapter 3 yet. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't come to that part or that stage of my spiritual growth. Certain people, I guess family members who wanted to keep tabs on me, keep an eye on me and wonder what's going on, started manifesting to me in dreams. And I'm wondering, you know what? I left these people behind almost 30 years ago. Why all of a sudden now they're showing up? This is the discernment. This is that intuitive faculty that comes along with spirituality and spiritual growth. And they started showing up to me and they were criticizing me, blah, 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 whatnot. Just very evil and very silly things. And after all, they're just projections of me, and they're just kind of my ego projecting all of this stuff around me to tell me, don't go. You're not spiritual. We already are spiritual. And the truth of the matter is we are spiritual. But anyone who tells you that you don't go seeking, you don't go looking for this stuff, you just automatically know it, it's a lie. Even the greatest guru in the whole world had to start somewhere. And it always starts with some kind of seeking phase. So when I wrote this post, I ended up talking to my parents who were down in Greece. At the time, my father was alive. My mother is still with us. And somehow we got around to this. You know, women, especially mothers, God has gifted them with the ability to be able to pull things out of their children, like as if they were psychic themselves, to be honest with you. And we got around, and somehow she ended up engaging me in conversation that was around religion, their Orthodox religion. And so I responded with my spiritual beliefs, not a worldly belief system, just the experiences that I was having. And all of a sudden, my mother says to me, she goes, yeah, I suppose I am going to crawl back into my mother's belly and be born again. You're so foolish. You're a fool for listening to people who say stuff like that. All of that stuff is nonsense and garbage. I can't tell you how disappointed I was to hear that. And I didn't understand that at that moment, I was playing the part of Jesus Christ. And the unfolding of the New Testament, John chapter 3, was happening before my very eyes. But I hadn't seen it yet. I realized that there was no reaching these people. I tried back in 1994, 1995, 1996, before I left Toronto, Ontario, and moved out to the West Coast. I tried for the longest time to reach them. And my father kept beating me up, kept telling me, no. He kept telling me, no, this is the way. We belong to the Orthodox Church. The historical Jesus Christ is coming back in his super spaceship, all done up with all his flares and magical symbols, and he's going to whisk us off to that special place called heaven. They wouldn't listen to me about an internal Jesus Christ, an internal God that is with us. They had their days, their weeks, their months, their years. Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? You know, I feel I have labored over you in vain, for you follow days, weeks, months, and years. But I couldn't reach them. And this time, it was through someone, an alias on my Facebook, that decided to reach out to my parents and tell them about the foolish things that I was writing and speaking about on video. And my mother ended up manipulating me somehow and coming around to talking about it. And when I did, she threw at me, I suppose I'm supposed to go back into my mother's belly and then just come right out and be born again, right? And then she called me a fool and said that the things that I'm learning and studying are foolish and nonsense. I wasn't studying anything. I was learning from Neville. At the same time, I was having so many revelations and visions and mystical experiences. They were unfolding in me and presenting themselves all around me, such as this Bible verse from John chapter 3. When I finally did get around to reading John, the hairs on my hands stood up and the back of my neck, they stood up, and I felt this great fear and terror take over me because I realized at that point that we haven't, in the 21st century, really changed in mentality from the dawn of time. We haven't at all. We may have built bigger buildings, bigger cities, bigger towns, bigger machinery, bigger airplanes, and given the world the greatest monitoring system in the whole world, the internet, where we can spy on each other, and we can, rather than use it to reach out and speak to people and talk to people and recognize people and greet our brothers and sisters from around the world, we use it to manipulate, deceive, and the greatest manipulation and deceiver and Satan in the world that causes all sort of doubt and fights and problems and challenges is the internet itself. For all the good that it is one of the greatest evils also, because it caters to an evil mentality. People who know how to seduce and manipulate. People who know how to hide and take things from you and reveal them to others and gang up on you. But it's okay. All these people, all these things, they're all you. You have given it to yourself. So in order to defeat it and win it over and become master over it, as I did when it dawned on me that that's what was happening, I eliminated Facebook. I eliminated every trace of social media with the exception of YouTube. And I held on to YouTube for probably about 5 years before I posted a video because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. I had tried wanting to talk about it back in those days when my second spiritual awakening happened to me, but I wasn't strong enough. I was getting there to like where I am right now, where I'm strong enough and capable and able and not worried about what I say, because I know it'll only reach a certain people. And I also know that there's no one speaking here. And there's only a speaker when you're ready to see that reflection of you. Because after all, we are all just reflections of ourselves. There are not 8 billion people in the world. There's 8 billion experiences. There's only one. That is your multiverse. That is your multi-dimensional things. And that's all that is. And anybody who tells you, come on, this is how you get to the 5th dimension, 4th dimension, 6th dimension, 10th dimension, these are the limitations and the unlimited aspect of yourself. There's expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. Even if you get to that place and you believe in that story of a 5th dimension, even if you get to that place, you're still going to end up coming back to the 3rd dimension because it's all about expansion and contraction. It's all about being limitless, full of the Spirit, and walking in the Spirit. And then it's about grounding, being limited. It's expansion and contraction all the time. And that's where your spiritual glimpses come in. You don't have multiple spiritual awakenings. You have 2, but you have spiritual glimpses, expansion and contraction. This is taken from Neville Goddard. When you hear his lectures, you'll hear him talk like this. But he was my teacher. He and I are one. What can I tell you? God and I are one. He spoke as being one with God. I being one with Neville, that makes me one with God, sharing these experiences that I've had and knowing that there are people out there who are experiencing it. I'm not a chosen one. All of humanity is the Son of God. Every single person is chosen. Don't be fooled in following some sort of protocol of a chosen one. We are all chosen, but we all have an appointed time. If your brother and sister precede you by 10 or 15 years, that does not mean that you will not have your time. You yourself, all of humanity is the Son of God. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And don't be fooled into thinking that you belong to a special sect or cult or organized religion that calls themselves the chosen one. We are all chosen, and everyone has a time when that happens. So when this happened to me, I finally got around to seeing it in John. As I said, I felt this great fear, but it was a fear of joy also. I recognized that the Bible unfolded before me with my mother and that conversation that John wrote about between his Jesus Christ and Nicodemus, and the words were identical. And I realized that no matter where we are in the 21st century, we have documented cases of man's mentality, his judgmental behavior, and his uninterest in understanding what he truly is, but rather mocks it, is coming right off of the pages of testimonies and books and poetry and music and whatnot that people have left behind to show us that you can build the greatest city in the world and bring it into the 250th century and it wouldn't make a difference if your mindset hasn't evolved, if you cannot recognize your reflection in another, if you cannot see yourself in another, but yet feel you need to cut them down and make all sorts of sarcastic, useless, meaningless gestures about an experience that they are having. You may have built the greatest city in the world and no one told you how to do your job, but you feel that it's important for you to take it upon yourself and tell someone else whether they are speaking the truth or telling a lie, telling them how they feel through you. Yeah, we really haven't evolved as a species at all. We may have evolved, but we've evolved in the wrong direction, building greater things and more monitoring systems to keep tabs on us, but we really haven't evolved at all. And you will find that the Bible will come alive this way to you. You may find yourself in a situation where you have to decline an offer to a special dinner. You may find that you may be present at a dinner where miraculously the thought of not having anything to drink or eat, and then all of a sudden it just shows up, somehow, some way, what was lacking was now part of the whole ordeal and part of the whole party and the whole scenario. You may find yourself in a situation talking to a woman about your spiritual experiences, and then your friends come along and marvel at why you're like talking to that woman. All of this stuff plays out. This is human behavior. This is spiritual growth. This is you growing spiritually and identifying with what these authors have left behind as a testimony to show that the mentality hasn't changed, but you need to drop it. You need to distance yourself. You need to understand that they haven't had their moment yet. And just like you had yours, they will have yours. I must decrease and he must increase. That doesn't mean that, you lose your power in decrease. It's not a video game and you're not being depleted that you need to run around and find some sort of life cycle or something like that. You carry everything that you have learned of your spiritual self. You are already there. Now you need to step to the side and you have to watch someone else grow. And that's when they come into their time and they start becoming and understanding and knowing what they truly are, no different than you did. And these experiences are part of that. And these experiences will help you grow spiritually and become more stronger, more confident, more the real you. You are a spiritual being. Every single person in this world is a spiritual being. But there is the division. There is the separation and the sleepwalk and the amnesia and the belief systems and programs and whatnot in the world that help with that sleepwalk and that amnesia. But at some point, you become unplugged, as in the Matrix, and you start seeing things from a different perspective. And sometimes it will take a traumatic event, as it did in my case, losing pretty much everything and being left alone to fend for myself with how I'm going to take care of everything. Or you may have a near-death experience. Or you know what? Maybe through this video, you may recognize yourself in me and all of a sudden have an awakening. No one knows how it's going to happen. No one knows when it's going to happen. It comes like a thief in the night, but it will happen. And there's no need for judgmental and accusatory tones, when talking about it, and you're faced with that kind of rhetoric and that kind of ugliness. Always remember, it's just a reflection of yourself, and don't worry about it. You can distance yourself from them. You haven't lost anything by distancing yourself from them. Even when you think about going through your spiritual change and your awakening that you lost all your friends and blah, 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 you will find out that it's probably the greatest thing that ever happened to you, because it is a lonely, lonely road, and it is not for the faint of heart, especially when you start having revelations and visions, mystical experiences. You will want to watch yourself develop and grow through this. This is God performing a good work in you, bringing you to the day of Jesus Christ. And bringing you to the day of Jesus Christ is the day that you are Jesus Christ, and you recognize this and you do not doubt it. And there's no longer a belief system. It is that belief system, and then amnesia becomes the abomination of desolation. This is T-Talk. This is Nick. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.